Welcome to the Explainer. Today, before we dive into the heavy stuff, I want to invite you to try something a little different with me. I want you to check yourself first with a really quick, totally honest diagnostic quiz. It's simple. You can grab a pen or, honestly, just count quietly in your head as we go. And listen, this Explainer isn't here to judge you, it's just here to guide you. So let's jump right in. I want you to see how many times you answer yes to the following questions. All right, let's go rapid fire. 1. Do you get super excited by new ideas but quickly lose patience with repetitive daily work? 2. When things go wrong, do you immediately look to blame the situation or other people before looking at yourself? 3. When you're hurt, do you just shut down, stay silent, and wait for the other person to magically figure it out? 4. Do you react strongly, maybe defensively, to honest feedback? 5. When conflict gets tense, do you act cold just to avoid a direct conversation? 6. Would you literally rather delay starting a project than accept a result that isn't absolutely perfect? 7. Do you avoid long-term commitments? 8. Do you feel like you have this special, untapped potential and totally reject normal office life because of it? 9. Do you use past wounds as an excuse to avoid your present responsibilities? And 10. Do you feel like you're just temporarily living right now, waiting for some massive, ideal turning point in your life? Okay, got your number? If you answered yes to 4 or more of these, or let's be real, if you immediately pictured a partner or family member who would, then you might be dealing with someone who is emotionally stuck.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to look at whether you're emotionally stuck, unpack this concept of the eternal child, reveal the 3 masks of immaturity, figure out exactly why we refuse to grow up, and finally lay out a real plan to get unstuck. Section 1. Are you emotionally stuck? Let's take a hard look at the gap between our biological age and our emotional age.
Section 2. The eternal child explained. It is time to reframe these behaviors not as character flaws, but as unconscious defense mechanisms.
You know, when society sees a 30 or 40-year-old adult, someone who looks totally mature on the outside, completely melt down and regress to the reactions of a child during a tough time, the labels fly fast. People call them lazy or selfish or irresponsible. But actually, this perfectly illustrates what the legendary psychologist Carl Jung called puer aeternus, or the eternal child. It refers to folks who have grown up biologically, sure, but their emotional life, it's basically stuck in the teenage stage. They avoid commitments just to maintain the absolute consequence-free freedom of a child. And this ties right into Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development, which basically tells us that if we don't resolve the core psychological tasks of an earlier stage, like a toddler learning basic self-control, we literally get stuck right there in time. These individuals are often brilliant, they have massive potential, but they lack the basic psychological tools needed to manage heavy emotions or face disappointment. Understanding the science here is absolutely crucial. It helps us approach this neutrally. It's not a personal fault we need to criticize, it's an unconscious defense mechanism built specifically to protect a very fragile, wounded ego.
Section 3. 3 masks of immaturity. Let's see exactly how we protect our fragile inner world.
Take a look at the duality of these behaviors when that fragile ego faces stress or unmet expectations. We basically throw on a mask. The first mask is sulking in silence. It's essentially the silent treatment Olympics. But psychologically, this is actually a regression right back to infancy. The person acts like a baby who literally can't speak, just hoping the other person will observe them and fix the problem. They do this because their ego is so incredibly fragile that simply saying, "Hey, you hurt me," makes them feel way too weak. The second mask is overreacting with anger. You know that huge explosion of rage over a tiny change in plans? That is actually a cover for deep inner panic. They feel completely lost, and to avoid feeling like a victim, they attack. The anger on the outside is just masking a massive fear of abandonment on the inside. And then we have the third mask, coldness and shutdown. This is the quietest one, but man, it is the most distancing. And it's not even intentional. It's a nervous system freeze response. The pain of disappointment is so high that the brain just unplugs. It disconnects from emotion entirely to avoid further hurt, locking them inside a safe but very, very empty fortress.
Section 4. Why we refuse to grow. Let's dig into the core causes that are deeply embedded inside a person's belief system.
So what's really driving this? Well, the first cause is the fear of becoming ordinary. See, a lot of these individuals were labeled gifted or special as kids. Receiving all that intense early praise for natural traits, like intelligence, created a fixed mindset. Their brain's reward system literally expects instant greatness. So sitting down and doing ordinary, repetitive tasks, it feels like an insult to their genius. But let's skip down to the fourth cause on this list, using pain as a shield. because this one is absolutely fascinating. They adopt what psychologists call an external locus of control. They blame past wounds or poor parenting for everything. Now let's be clear, those past difficulties are very real. But the emotionally stuck person turns them into a safety blanket. It becomes an excuse to dodge adult responsibilities, playing the eternal victim so they never actually have to try, and therefore never have to fail.
Let's look a little closer at the trap of unlimited potential. On one hand, there is this strong desire to stay in what I call the waiting hall of life. They sit there imagining they could be an amazing writer, an incredible entrepreneur, literally anything. But as cognitive psychology reminds us on the other side of the scale, every real choice involves an opportunity cost. Committing to one job or one relationship naturally means closing other doors. For the eternal child, giving up those other options feels like losing a piece of their identity. But here is the hard reality we all must accept. Not choosing is also a choice. Clinging to unlimited potential simply prevents you from ever turning that potential into actual, tangible reality.
And, that feeds perfectly into the illusion of perfection. In their minds, they build these flawless careers and ideal loves where their partners have absolutely zero weaknesses. But then, they meet the roughness of reality. Boring paperwork, coding errors, partners who are just normal, everyday humans with bad habits, like chewing a little too loudly or leaving their socks on the living room floor. The gap between their perfect fantasy and reality is just massive. So they develop a hair-in-the-soup mindset. The second a tiny flaw appears, they deem the entire experience worthless and retreat right back into the safety of their flawless fantasies. Section 5. How to finally grow up. All right, let's look at a structured treatment plan for emotional maturity.
Listen, emotional maturity doesn't magically download into your brain on your 30th birthday. It's a trained process. And this transition to adulthood, it isn't a loss of freedom. It is a brave quest into a highly rewarding reality. So here's the playbook. Step 1, make friends with boredom. You have to rewire your brain's reward system away from instant praise and toward daily consistency. Wash the dishes, finish the spreadsheet. Consistency is just far more valuable than short, unpredictable bursts of effort. Step 2, dare to commit and accept trade-offs. Pick a path and stick to it, knowing that time is passing anyway. Step 3, actively name your emotions. Give up the masks of sulking or rage and start practicing constructive communication. And step 4, allow yourself to be weak. Lower that defensive pride and have some self-compassion for your own flaws.
Let's zoom in on step 3 for a second, because this is a real game changer. Notice how we can turn instinctive rage into actual maturity. Instead of attacking someone with, "You always ruin everything," which is the mask talking, you take a breath and say, "I feel anxious and disrespected when the plan is changed without telling me first. Do you see the difference?" This names your emotion and it sets a boundary. It frees you from expecting the other person to magically read your mind, and frankly, it is the absolute hallmark of a mature adult.
To revisit the idea of committing, I really want you to absorb this. Giving up 99 other doors just to walk through one single door is not a prison, it's a necessary achievement. Showing compassion for your own limits and accepting the real-world trade-offs of making a definitive choice, that is what actually builds true, lasting inner strength. The value of a life is built by our choices, not by grand ideas that stay forever in theory.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. Emotional maturity is for sure one of the hardest challenges in life. It requires immense courage, and it absolutely doesn't happen overnight. But ask yourself, will you step down from the launch pad of great fantasies and finally place your feet on the messy, real ground? Because bravely taking off those defensive masks and accepting reality with all its limits and beautiful flaws, that is the ultimate mark of maturity. Thank you so much for walking through this explainer with me today. Keep building that inner strength, and I'll see you next time.